Welcome everyone to another episode of Retro Wrestling Reviews. Fredo Esparza here, and this week we look back at World Class Championship Wrestling's May 22nd, 1982 show. Before we get to the review, be sure to click that subscribe button. We'll have more wrestling show reviews as well as the Lucha World podcast and other content available on this channel. This episode was taped on May 9th, 1982 at the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas, and aired on May 22nd, 1982. Mark Lawrence is on commentary. The first match was Wild Bill Irwin beating Carlos Zapata after a running knee drop got him the pin on Zapata. Zapata got Irwin with some forearms early in the match, but Irwin made a comeback and body slammed Zapata. Zapata kept Irwin's left arm in an armbar while being slammed. Irwin shoved Carlos into the ropes and whipped him across and got him in a hip toss. Zapata quickly recovered and continued to go after Irwin's left arm. Carlos Zapata missed a kick, and that gave Irwin the opportunity to stomp on Zapata. Irwin then got Carlos Zapata again with a belly-to-belly suplex. Wild Bill and Zapata went back and forth for a bit. Zapata catches Irwin with a chop to the throat and then beats him in the corner. He then whipped Irwin into the corner, but Bill moved out of the way. Irwin got Zapata with a slam and then ran the ropes and leaped into the air and landed a knee drop on him for the pin. After the match, Irwin screamed at the fans that he was the Texas heavyweight champion. Second match on the show was the Spoiler beating Rick Harris after a reverse knee drop for the win. For those unfamiliar with Rick Harris, this is the man who would later go on to wrestle as Black Bart in World Class and various other promotions, including the NWA and UWF, I think even WWF for a few years. The Spoiler used the ropes often throughout the match to get in his offense on Harris. He controlled most of the match. Midway through the match, the Spoiler threw Harris through the ropes to the outside and they brawled on the floor. Harris then made a comeback with some punches and forearms as they got back into the ring. Late in the match, Harris whipped Spoiler into the corner, but the Spoiler moved out of the way as Harris charged at him. The Spoiler then climbed to the top rope and landed an elbow drop on Harris and followed with a reverse knee drop to get the pin. Mark Lawrence then interviewed Bugsy McGraw. Bugsy was amused that Lawrence wanted to get into his thoughts. He talked about giants and big-time wrestling. He mentioned Andre the Giant would be part of the Body Slam Battle Royal. He explained what each man must do to win. Bugsy said he'd held 2 titles at once, which makes him a giant, and vowed to slam Andre the Giant. He had no fear of evil like Andre the Giant. Third match on the show had the Great Kabuki accompanied by Gary Hart and Amran Hussein beating Kevin Von Erich in a lumberjack match after a fist drop across Kevin's throat, which led to him getting the pin. This was a really good match with lots of heat. Before the match started, referee David Manning informed Gary Hart and Arman Hussein that there was one condition to the lumberjack match, and in order to keep it fair, one of them had to leave along with one lumberjack from H&H Enterprise. They discussed it, and Hussein and Bugsy McGraw left the ringside area. That left only 6 lumberjacks, which were King Kong Bundy, Wild Bill Irwin, Carlos Zapata, Ken Mantel, The Spoiler, and Mike Bond. Kevin Von Erich quickly attacked Kabuki and they brawled outside, which led to all the lumberjacks getting involved, trying to get them back into the ring. Kevin missed an elbow drop in the ring and Kabuki punched him. Kabuki followed with chops and got Kevin in a nerve hold as the crowd cheered loudly for Kevin. Kevin Von Erich broke out of the hold and went for the Iron Claw at Kabuki's midsection. Kabuki chopped his way out of the claw. They exchanged kicks. Kabuki went for the nerve hold again, but Kevin elbowed his way out of it and went for the claw at Kabuki's head. Kabuki held off the claw and tried to head to the outside, but the lumberjacks shoved him back in. Von Erich kept getting Kabuki in the claw. Kabuki would constantly escape. Kabuki then tried to escape to the outside, but wasn't able to, which the fans loved. Von Erich went for a high cross body block off the ropes for another near fall. Kabuki then kicked out of that and kicked Kevin as soon as he got up. Kabuki went for the armpit nerve hold, but Kevin broke out with chops and kicks at Kabuki. Kevin got Kabuki in a sleeper hold, but then they reached the ropes and were forced to break the hold. Kevin went for a knee drop and then again for the claw on Kabuki, but Kabuki held it off for a bit. But Kevin was able to get the claw on Kabuki's midsection again. Kabuki escaped, but Kevin quickly got him with a claw across his forehead. They ended up on the ropes, and the referee again broke it up. Kevin caught Kabuki with a forearm, but Kabuki countered with a kick. Kevin was able to counter with a claw across Kabuki's forehead. Gary Hart then climbed up on the ring apron, and Kevin got him with the iron claw. The lumberjacks tried to pull Hart off the ring. That led to King Kong Bundy tripping Kevin Von Erich, and then he got him with a couple of elbows. Kabuki then super kicked Kevin and dropped the fist across Kevin's throat and covered him for the pin. Like I said, this was a really good match. After the match, Mark Lowrance interviewed Kevin Von Erich. King Kong Bundy then attacked Kevin Von Erich and slammed him on the floor. He stomped on him and then grabbed the mic from Mark Lowrance and yelled out that he just made an easy $1,000 because Gary Hart told him that every time he put down a Von Erich, he'd get that amount. The fourth match on the show saw Bugsy McGraw beating Mike Bond after a splash for the pin. This was a short match following that wild match. McGraw dominated most of this match and probably could have won it sooner, but he refused to pin Bond at one point. After the match, Bugsy banged his head into the top turnbuckle. The final match on the card had King Kong Bundy versus Ken Mantel, but before that match, King Kong Bundy and Arman Hussein joined Mark Lowrance for an interview. Mark Lowrance asked Bundy about facing Fritz Von Erich in his farewell match to pro wrestling. Arman Hussein said that after Bundy takes out Fritz, that he would slam Andre the Giant. Bundy said that day in Texas Stadium will be the biggest day of his life. He said H&H is going to pay him a ton of money for retiring Fritz and slamming Andre the Giant. Lowrance wanted to know why Bundy doesn't talk about what Fritz did for him, but Bundy said the only people who did anything for him in Texas were H&H Enterprise. They then recapped King Kong Bundy's attack on Kevin Von Erich early on the show. Again, the last match on the show was King Kong Bundy with Arman Hussein beating Ken Mantel by DQ when Kevin Von Erich interfered and attacked Bundy. Mark Lowrance gave the backstory about how the Von Erichs took King Kong Bundy into their home and helped him when he moved to Texas, and now he had turned on them. Arman Hussein talked about how Bundy beat Kerry Von Erich and will destroy the rest of the Von Erichs. Mantel tried using his speed to take Bundy down but was unsuccessful in doing it. Bundy had control of the match when Kevin Von Erich ran out and hit Bundy and Hussein with a chair. Hussein tried to restrain Bundy while the referee held Kevin Von Erich back. Ken Mantel wanted them to keep on fighting. Mark Lowrance pointed out that Bundy's back was bleeding from the chair shot. Thought this was a great episode focusing on the ongoing war between the Von Erichs and H&H Enterprises. The Great Kabuki versus Kevin Von Erich lumberjack match was the best match on the show. And with Bundy helping Kabuki get the win, I thought it was great that they continued the storyline the rest of the show between Kevin and Bundy, with Kevin attacking Bundy during his match. Fun episode overall. Definitely worth watching the Kevin versus Kabuki match if that's all you have time to watch. But honestly, I would say the second half of the show, if you have time to watch the entire second half, it's worth it just because it's basically the ongoing feud between the Von Erichs and H&H Enterprises, which was a fun feud that was going on during the 1982. That's it for this review. Be sure to subscribe to the Retro Wrestling YouTube channel, and we will be back again soon with more reviews.